This is the new 2025 Mercedes-Benz E450 All-Terrain, and it's a surprise. I say that because it's close to the last wagon left. BMW stopped doing wagons. Volvo is reportedly doing the same. Even the popular Subaru Outback has finally left the wagon world to become a real crossover. But the Mercedes E-Class wagon soldiers on, and now there's a new one. And today I'm going to review it and show you all of its quirks and features. Before we get started, are you ready for your next cool car? Sell your enthusiast car on Cars and Bids. Trading in your car to dealers means you aren't getting market value for your car, leaving you with less cash for your next fun car. Just look at our recent sales of these cool cars compared to current trade-in value. This is a trade-in offer, and this was the Cars and Bids result. This is a trade-in offer, and this was the Cars and Bids result. This is the trade-in offer, and this is the Cars and Bids result. Get started now on carsandbids.com. Sell on Cars and Bids and join the best community to sell your enthusiast car. All right, time for the quirks and features of the new Mercedes-Benz E450 All-Terrain, and yes, it is new. The E-Class was fully redesigned last year. I already reviewed the sedan, and now the wagon. It looks pretty similar to the outgoing model, but it does have new styling, a new interior, new tech, new features, a lot of different upgrades, despite the similar look. And the wagon returns just like before as the E450 All-Terrain, sort of like the regular Mercedes wagon, but lifted a little bit with these gray plastic fender liners over the wheels to try to make it seem more off-roady, sort of like the Audi Allroad and the Subaru Outback. This is the only way you can get the Mercedes E-Class wagon in non-AMG trim. They don't sell a non-All-Terrain. It's the All-Terrain or nothing. But since I mentioned it, let's talk AMG. In the past, Mercedes has sold a high-performance AMG E63 wagon, but it hasn't been offered for several years now. They've already committed to returning with a high-performance E53 wagon, a little less power, not quite as exciting, but the future of the E63 is uncertain. For now, you got the E450 or the upcoming E53. As for pricing, the new E450 All-Terrain starts around $77,000. This one is equipped with a sticker price of just under $90,000. So let's start by talking about what's new. Like I mentioned, the overall look, the design, the style of this car isn't really. Even though this is a brand new redesigned model, you'd be forgiven for thinking it's just a facelift or a slight update over the last one. It really looks similar from an overall profile style design perspective. Now, that's not a bad thing. The E-Class took on the previous design back in 17, and it has looked good since then. It was a nice design, and it makes sense to not completely change something that's working and something that's generally agreed to be good. But it is surprising for a brand new model that it doesn't look that different. There are a few notable changes on the outside, though. One is up front. The grille is much larger than before, and it now has floating Mercedes-Benz stars. You see the big one in the center, but if you look closely at all the little trim on the sides of the grille, it's all little Mercedes-Benz stars sort of floating in the grille design, which certainly looks interesting and a little different than you might expect. And the Mercedes-Benz star theme has carried over to the taillights, which you can see have the Mercedes-Benz star as sort of their general design. When the headlights are on, the taillights are illuminated, showing off the Mercedes-Benz star to people behind you, which is kind of an interesting quirk and different from the previous model. In the taillights, by the way, one other difference is you now have orange turn signals, as you can see, instead of red turn signals before. This is not a big deal, but it is worth mentioning. One of the more notable changes on the outside of the new E-Class, the new wagon, is the door handles. The previous one, you just grab the door handle and open it. Now, the door handle is flush with the body, as you can see, until you walk up to the car, it unlocks, and the door handle automatically pops out so that you can open the door. You can see it even says Mercedes-Benz imprinted into the door handle when it pops out, just so you're reminded exactly what type of vehicle you're getting into. And next we move inside the new wagon, and while exterior changes aren't that significant, the interior has gone through much more substantial upgrades compared to the old model. And the most noticeable thing, the second you climb inside, the first thing you see is this giant screen that basically goes across the entire interior. It's an option on this car. It's called the Hyperscreen, and you can see it really is huge, and it spans from the central infotainment screen over to the passenger side of the dashboard, all the way to the edge of the car. The driver gauge cluster screen is separate, but it is an additional screen, so there is a lot of screen acreage in this interior, which definitely is a big change from the outgoing model. Now, if you get the Hyperscreen option, the passenger side screen, well, you can see it has a bunch of floating Mercedes-Benz stars integrated into the screen. That's until you turn it on. And when you turn it on, you discover that it becomes shockingly duplicative of what's already in the central infotainment screen. In fact, the home screen between the two is practically identical, and it doesn't seem like the passenger screen gives you dramatically different results or different options or menus than what you would get in the center screen. It's just maybe 6 inches closer to the passenger side. To me, that does not really justify the extra cost of adding the Hyperscreen. I think it's only really worth it if you love having this cool giant screen look in the car. It just doesn't seem like they figured out exactly what to do with the passenger screen yet, so they basically just mirrored the driver screen. Now, that isn't necessarily a bad thing, because the Mercedes-Benz infotainment technology is absolutely fantastic. It's just great. It's responsive, easy, very intuitive, very simple to figure out. Truly, probably the best infotainment system in the entire car industry. Just works wonderfully, and that is definitely true in this car as well. And of course, it's also compliant with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is how a lot of people use this stuff. And there are some interesting quirks integrated into this screen. Like, for example, there's an off-road mode. And if you tap on that, you go into this off-road area that gives all these off-road driving metrics, as if you're going to take your Mercedes E-Class wagon with its 1-inch all-terrain lift off-road. You have that off-road display in here for all those mountains you're going to conquer in this vehicle. But it's better than that. There's also an in-car camera that you can turn on and take selfies. You go here, the camera you can see is located right here, the top center of the dashboard, and when you go into the camera, you can use it to take selfies. You're waving at the camera, take the picture, and then it's stored in your car. Why would you want this? I have no idea, but it is an available feature for you, so you can use your Mercedes-Benz selfie camera. And we're not done yet. This also has built-in games. There is a built-in Sudoku if you want to just sit and solve a puzzle in your Mercedes station wagon, or you can play Shuffle Puck, which is this game where you shuffle around a puck trying to score a goal, sort of like air hockey. Ridiculous infotainment system, games, selfie cam. They're really going all out with the tech. Now, the only real drawback, as far as I can see, from this infotainment system is that it also integrates your climate controls. And unfortunately, basically every climate control feature requires multiple pushes. Even just changing the climate control temperature, you got to tap on it and then slide your finger to the temperature you want. All of the climate controls do require this additional step. Now, thankfully, Mercedes-Benz models include their heated and cooled seat controls on the door panel, and that's still the situation here. You still have separate special buttons for heated and cooled seats, so you can easily just turn that stuff on, but all the other climate control stuff has to be done in the screen, usually multiple menus, which is a bit of a shame considering it's such a massive screen to have to go into a menu just to adjust your air temperature. One other kind of tech disappointment in this car, in the previous model E-Class, in order to change the stereo volume, there was a little dial you could easily just use in the center to turn it up or down. Here, that's been replaced by this little kind of slidey finger thing to turn the volume up or down. It works fine, but it's just a little bit more difficult because you have to slide, slide, slide if you want it to go way up, whereas the volume knob, you could just sort of keep twisting. It also just requires a little more precision with your hand, your finger. It was just easier before, and it's a shame to lose that physical control. Now, this car also has another interesting slidey situation, and that is for the sunroof. You don't have a regular switch up here. Instead, you have this kind of panel you can see. To open the sunroof, you slide your finger across, and then the sunroof will slide open in the direction you slid your finger. To stop it, you just tap your finger, and that stops the sunshade from opening. And to slide it closed, you slide your finger in the other direction. No actual switch. In this case, I think this works wonderfully. Don't love it for volume, but love it for sunroof. Kind of a cool gimmick, and you're probably not using sunroof all that often. It's a much easier thing to just slide, and I think it works well. Other interesting quirks in this interior. For one, if you open up this center console lid, you can see you have cup holders in here, but you also have a wireless charging pad, and the surface of that wireless charging pad is Mercedes-Benz logos once again. Just like on the taillights and the grille, a lot of Mercedes-Benz logos integrated into the charging pad, which is kind of a neat touch. Another interesting quirk in this interior is the climate vents. You can see, especially in the center and on the passenger side, it's just this one big, long, thin climate vent that goes basically all the way around. It's actually separated into smaller vents, but it looks like one big one, and it's almost looks like trim rather than individual vents kind of stuck in the interior. A lot of automakers are trying to deprioritize the look of climate vents. They don't want it to be such a big focal point in interiors. That's certainly what they've done here, and it's kind of an interesting look how they've integrated this unusual giant vent. Now, one disappointment in this interior in terms of technology is the rear view mirror, which is still a rear view mirror. A lot of rivals have gone to rear view cameras, which are safer, easier to see out the back in case your car is full, you're not looking through people. But here, still a traditional mirror, which is a disappointment for a brand new car in this day and age. With that said, speaking of screens, the gauge cluster screen in the new E-Class wagon, fantastic. Still the very best in the business, tremendously configurable. You can have a full screen map, your music, your drive, your driver assist, basically anything you want to see can be there, and a lot of these screens offer multiple views of different information at once. You can choose between several different screen designs. It is a really fantastic, wonderfully configurable gauge cluster screen. Mercedes has been using it for a while now, and I still think it's basically the best. Everyone else should emulate it, and I love how it feels in this car. But beyond that, overall, my impression of this interior is that it is still a very high quality, very upscale, very nice place to be, which is exactly what we've all come to expect from the Mercedes-Benz E-Class. This is a very popular Mercedes-Benz model. It is sold globally. They can't afford to take big, crazy design risks in the interior, so they don't. They just give it nice materials, kind of a nice, intuitive layout. It all works reasonably well, and that is still true even for the latest E-Class, even in 25. It all just is nice, and it works. And next up, we move on to the back seat in the E-Wagon, which is shockingly roomy. There's a lot of space back here. Even though a lot of people pass over wagons, they're not SUVs, they're not big enough inside, that's not really true. The dimensions are all pretty similar, and there's a lot of space for legs, knees, head, hips. It all works back here. It's a good, roomy rear seat, although the center rear seat, the middle seat back here, is pretty hampered by this giant hump that comes up in the middle of the floor. That's for the driveline to bring power to the rear wheels, the transmission, and it just really steals a lot of the legroom and footroom from that center seat. It basically renders this seat useless. It's not very practical, but that's the situation. Now, one thing that's a little bit of a disappointment in this back seat, I was expecting more stuff. You do have USB-C ports, as you can see down here, for charging devices, which is nice. You also have climate vents in the center, as you can see, obviously to enhance rear seat comfort, but that's about it. Those things are basics that you'd expect at this price point. I am surprised not to see heated rear seats, ventilated rear seats, rear seat climate controls, or rear window sunshades. For the $90,000 price point, I would kind of expect to see some of that stuff back here, but you don't get it, at least in this version of this car. Now, you do get cup holders. You fold down this center armrest and you pop it out, and there's a little slot where you can put like a pen or a cell phone to have it kind of displayed for you, but you press it again and then cup holders pop out, so you have a place to store your drinks. Still a roomy but kind of no frills back seat, a little disappointing at this price point. And next up, we move on to the cargo area in the E450 All-Terrain, where we also see probably my biggest disappointment about this car, which is the third row seat is gone. Now, I own the previous generation of this car, the 2022-23 model, and in the cargo area of the previous E-Class wagon, and basically all previous E-Class wagons, there is a third row rear-facing seat back here with full seat belts, totally safe. They've taken it out for this new new body style, which is such a shame. It's no longer available. Now, that third row is pretty tight. It's mounted kind of on top of the cargo floor. It's really only meant for kids or adults who are willing to kind of cram their heads in, but it is actually surprisingly practical. If you have kind of smaller kids or people who want sort of a fun adventure, it's extra seats, and it's a really easy third row to access because you do not have to go past the second row like you do in every other three-row vehicle. You just open up the tailgate and you climb right in. It's a shame this car has lost that feature. I think it definitely loses some practicality by missing out on the third row, but it is indeed gone in the new model. However, the cargo area is quite large. It's really big. That's always been a benefit of E-Class wagons. It remains true here. And some other nice benefits in back. For one, easy to drop the seats. You get a little switch on the side. You pull, the seat flops right down. It's not power operated, so you can't raise the seat with this little switch, but you can drop it in case you have something large you're trying to get back here. You also have a power port in the cargo area, although unfortunately it is a 12-volt cigarette lighter style power port rather than an actual household plug. In fact, there are no household power ports anywhere inside this car, which is a drawback. It's kind of a shame they're not doing that. They really should be doing that, but they're not. Still, you get a 12-volt back here. It works okay. And finally, we move on to the powertrain in the new E450 All-Terrain, which is the same engine that was in the previous one. That is a turbocharged hybrid straight six, 3 liters. It makes about 375 horsepower and 370 pound-feet of torque. That's an increase of about 15 horsepower over the outgoing model, although the torque figure stays the same. Now, all-wheel drive is standard. This is the E450 All-Terrain after all. 0 to 60 is in the low to mid 4-second range. And indeed, this is one of the very last wagons. BMW has abandoned wagons. Volvo has just announced they're pulling the V90 off the market. That was this car's closest competitor. The Volvo V60 is still on sale, but there's been rumors that it will be discontinued at the end of its life cycle. Audi still sells the Allroad, the A4 and the A6, but the A4 is going away, replaced by the new Audi A5, and we're not sure if a wagon is going to come. The A6 and the RS6 still here for now. But generally speaking, the wagon is slowly dying, almost dead. Mercedes-Benz still carrying the torch with this car, a rare wagon in the modern age. And let's get it out on the road and see how it drives. All right, driving the new E450 All-Terrain. I haven't made a big deal about this yet, but I own the previous version of this car, the 2022 model, the previous body style. And it's been my daily driver for 3 years now. And so I'm kind of uniquely qualified to review this car. I obviously spent a lot of time in the old one, and so I kind of know what's been changed about the new one. And I gotta say, there are a few things that I really prefer with this new car, and a couple things that I actually prefer about mine. So, the new car, the drive in general, even though power only increased by 15 horses and no torque, the car just feels more substantial, let's say. The steering feels a little bit just more solid. The chassis in general feels a little bit more solid. The car just has sort of a more substantial, like more serious, heavy luxury car kind of feel on the road. The steering in this car has that more solid feel. It is a little bit less comfort tuned, it seems to me. I wouldn't necessarily still call the steering or the handling in this car particularly sporty, but the steering definitely is more secure, more solid, and a little bit less floaty. My car definitely feels, the old body style definitely feels a little bit softer in basically every way. Now, that's not to say that this car is uncomfortable. Despite the fact that the chassis feels kind of tighter in corners and just more solid, the steering does, it still has the same sort of soft suspension going over bumps, and that's one of my favorite things about this car, and one of the reasons I bought it is just how comfortable it is. I also generally prefer the interior, the materials. Things got a little bit nicer between generations, which is good. My two things that I actually prefer about my car, number one, the door handles. I actually find these pop-out door handles to be kind of annoying. Sometimes you walk up to the car and they're not popped out. You have to kind of stand there and press them and hope for the best, and it's just not as good as regular door handles. And the other thing I vastly prefer about my car is I had a volume dial on my car in the interior to change the stereo volume. This one has the little slider thing, just doesn't work as well. And of course, the other big benefit of the old E-Class All-Terrain is the third row, which is probably the primary reason why I'm not going to be giving mine up for the new one, cost being the other. I really like the third row. It's one of the reasons I got the car. It's only for kids, but kids use it and are going to want to, and I want my kids to grow up in the back of a rear-facing third row, which is kind of a cool thing. And the car limits its practicality a little bit by not having it, especially because that third row was so easily accessible. In general, though, things I like about both cars, things that are still great about this one, probably the number one thing that I like the most is its just unbelievable ability to be such a fantastic all-around car. This car really does an amazing job of combining excellent acceleration. You know, when I went looking for my E450 All-Terrain, I sincerely considered an AMG Wagon, and then I just decided this thing does 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. That's as fast as AMG E-Class models that I've owned in years past. Like, I don't need an AMG anymore to deliver the acceleration. And yet, in addition to great acceleration, you don't have to sacrifice ride quality for an AMG. So you get like basically close to AMG performance, but you get this wonderful, supple, soft ride that the E-Class has become so refined around. It's just a fantastically perfect luxury car ride and drive experience that is just so great. I also like the steering and handling feel. I like the Mercedes-Benz GLE, which is basically the SUV equivalent or alternative to this, but it never will handle or steer or feel like a car, and this does a pretty good job of that. And then there's the practicality. I mean, that's a really huge benefit. Having excellent performance in a car-like driving experience usually means in the car world that you're sacrificing something, because the only way to really deliver that is with SUV practicality in a car, and that only happens if you get a station wagon, which nobody wants. Station wagons now are basically non-existent, but this combines it all. You have basically an SUV-sized cargo area and seating capacity back there, but you get like the benefits of driving a car in terms of the way it feels on the road. For all these reasons, I got one of these cars. I really believe, truly, that it is the greatest all-around car on the market. This car just delivers a lot of stuff for a car enthusiast, and I really love it. And the new generation has a lot to love also, and I'm sure I will eventually get one someday. I have owned every single generation of Mercedes-Benz E-Class, going back to the 124 in the 90s, and I have no doubt that I will end up with one of these too. It still delivers everything I've always loved about the E-Class, and specifically the E-Class Wagon. And so that's the new 2025 Mercedes-Benz E450 All-Terrain. This is a fantastic car that'd be so great for so many people. From performance to comfort, from technology to practicality, it checks virtually every box. It's just that virtually every person doesn't want a wagon. But if you do, this is the one to get. And now it's time to give the Mercedes Wagon a DougScore.
And the DougScore is here, 63 out of 100, which places the E450 All-Terrain here against some sort of similar cars, although this list is mostly SUVs because luxury wagons have largely disappeared from the market. The new E450 All-Terrain earns the same score as the old E450 All-Terrain, which makes sense as updates aren't so significant that it deserves a major boost, but it's still an excellent car and a great alternative to an SUV if you don't want to get the usual family luxury vehicle.